Hi everyone, it's Adam with Milo's Restoration, and today I've got a video for you about painting this chest of drawers. It's like a mid-century style piece, just kind of typical kind of brown stain furniture. It's got a solid wood frame with the like veneered particle board, but overall it's a good piece and I sold it very quickly. Also, this video is also going to be about just general problems that you kind of encounter when furniture flipping. You know, paint not adhering, primer not sticking, contamination, broken drawer slides, and I just kind of want to shorten the amount of time that it takes for people to get proficient in these kinds of things because it was a very frustrating process for me, and I hope that I can make it easier on somebody else out there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We'll kind of just talk about all those things as we go. So the first thing that I had to do was kind of seal up these particle board edges. So I used some thin CA glue, and I basically just put it into the particle board and it just kind of seals it up. It just basically kind of plasticizes it and makes it to where I can continue sanding, as well as, most importantly, start cleaning it with a degreaser, because if water got in there while before it was sealed, it would potentially swell up and ruin the whole piece. So this is Quickwood, and it's basically an epoxy putty that looks like wood. And I really prefer it now as opposed to Bondo or other fillers, because I've just had a lot of problems with the typical two-part automotive fillers. I've just noticed that they shrink or they crack or they're just not as good. And epoxy-based products like this are definitely the way to go.
One broken here, one here, and a few other ones that are kind of messed up. So basically this piece is a Kenwin, you can see the brand right there, drawer slide, and Kenwin manufactured the drawers for a lot of different people. So they made, I think that this particular brand is like, I don't know, but it's a piece of mid-century furniture. And all the major brands had drawer slides manufactured by different people, but one of the popular brands was definitely Kenwin. And while it can be kind of hard to find replacement tracks for these like off the shelf at a store, you can definitely order them on Amazon. But I'm gonna show you another option here that has worked pretty good for me. This drawer glide is from Home Depot. And what I've found is that this is what it looks like. This is the box, just so you can see it. They're usually available at pretty much Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, places like that. And the tolerance is almost the exact same as a Kenwin. And you can make it work if you can't find the Kenwin replacements. So basically, this piece will be set inside the metal track, and this will be on the back of the drawer. So we're gonna do that now. Line up in almost the same exact place. If I had the Kenwin brand, I'd prefer to use them, but I don't have any.
So that was just something that I had kind of filmed inside my shop. I hope that it's a little bit helpful. Yeah, you'll come across a lot of things like this that just the repetitive doing it over and over again, you kind of start to notice, like the fact that most of the drawer slides and that were plastic or that kind of similar design did come from the same place, and you can order replacement parts. So they're very affordable and you can find them. So it's just something to think about if you're having an issue with drawer slides. But yeah, it's just a quick fix, and it didn't really take a whole long to do that. You could argue there's some issues with those drawer slides, and I'd probably agree. But you know what? The best thing to do sometimes is just replace it with the original parts that came there, came from the factory. So that's usually what I do. So I did clean the drawers before I started sanding them. And I also cleaned the areas on the dresser or the chest of drawers that I could not really sand all of the finish off. I use a Scotch Brite, I use Simple Green or some kind of crud cutter and degreaser. I spray it, then I kind of abrade it with a Scotch Brite, and then I'll just rinse off whatever's on there. This finish, for whatever reason, just had some kind of just weird consistency to it, and usually that kind of is a heads up to me that I'm probably going to have some problems, and I did. Before I spray my primer, I pretty much always sand with at least 180, 220 sometimes. It really just depends on what I have. I'll use the kind of like the contouring pads from Surf Prep, and I'll use the firm pads that are thinner, also from Surf Prep, and it's a fine pad, which is about 180 to 220. So I'm just mixing up my primer here. I'm using Centurion's 1K and 2K primers. I'll be honest with you, as far as products go, I'm not too brand loyal. I use a hodgepodge of things. I use Sherwin-Williams Gallery series a lot. I like it. It's convenient. The color matches are always on point. I don't have to worry about that, particularly when working with designers. But for primers, I really like Centurion's primer. This is their 1111. It's catalyzed by 5%, and it's just a good product. It's a very good water-based primer. I highly recommend it. I'm not a huge fan of their top coats. Um, the other thing about this primer is that it's got a very good build to it, so it gives you a very good sanding surface to start with. And when you catalyze it, it does block stains as well. So after I sprayed my primer, I came back to this the next day. And, this is not really a ideal situation, obviously. Uh, I think that something like this, you just can't really just immediately give up on it. It's obviously frustrating and kind of annoying, but you just really need to look at it for what it is, which is that the only areas where the finish failed at on this piece were areas where there was just a little bit of finish remaining that I didn't get all of that off. So all I did was I just sanded all that finish off that I could, and I just resprayed it with a vinyl sealer. uh, Vinyl sealer is a very good a good primer to use in situations where you have a finish failure or a primer failure that just didn't work, you know. But I definitely want to go back and make sure that I clean everything well. And I'm not worried about the areas that where the finish didn't fail at, especially the areas where I sanded down to raw wood. That's really the best case for a primer, is spraying raw wood. It's definitely going to adhere. Almost anything will adhere. It's really the areas where you have a questionable finish where the type of primer you use really matters. So that's also something to think about. After a few rounds of sanding the areas that had checked and spraying the vinyl sealer, I had everything coated again. I put a full coat of the vinyl sealer as a primer over the whole piece, and then I sanded like I normally would. After primer, I'm usually sanding with like 3 to 400 grit, Surf Prep Super Fine or Merca 320, any kind of brand that I have, really. I don't really care. Uh, just as long as it's 3 to 400 grit, and that's really it. I just try to sand all the orange peel out from spraying the primer, get everything smooth for the base coat, and your primer should really look like almost like a finish coat. It should be really smooth. It should be really uh, flat, and no issues with orange peel or anything like that. Because if you do leave it, it's just going to kind of telegraph through to your final coat. Just getting my sprayer loaded up with the Gallery series. It's 30 Sheen Gallery series from Sherwin-Williams. It's like a cabinet type finish. It's for trim. It's very good. It's basically kind of, I think it's something that was like a 1K product from a company that they bought that they kind of took and modified to make it more like a cabinet coating. It dries very quickly. It's got a fast cure time. You can transport pieces the next day after you spray it. The finish is very hard, very durable. I like it a lot. It's a good product. You know, people complain about it, say it's not as good as all the other 1K products out there, and I would probably agree with that statement. But it's very convenient, and yeah, the color matches are always great, so I don't have to worry about that. And as far as choosing my colors go, you know, I just choose what's popular. I look around and see what other painters are using, what other interior designers are using, and I kind of just copycat a little bit. Um, every now and then I'll do things just because I like to do them, but you know, at the same time, I've got to meet market demands, and right now, blue grays, some kind of sage green colors, and just obviously, always your neutrals will always sell. But other than that, you know, I just stick to what's popular. I had a few little runs that I had to fix, so I just sanded the runs out, then I reprimed those areas with a rattle can. Same primer. I sanded everything down, and then I sprayed everything again for a second coat. So on the final coat, I'm a lot more careful, particularly with the water-based products because you're more likely to get a run whenever you're using a 1K or 2K product or really any kind of water-based paint just because they have a lot longer open time than lacquer does. So usually what I'll do is I'll get a light and I'll place it at an angle to where I can see my spray pattern, and that just allows me to make sure that I saturate the surface enough, but it's kind of a balance where you need to get enough paint to basically wet the whole area, but at the same time you want to make sure that it's not too much to where you will get a run. And so sometimes whenever I'm spraying my first coat, I'll just get a little bit careless and I won't really pay attention to the fact that I've already kind of got the whole area sprayed a wet coat, and I'll just keep spraying. But on the second coat, I don't want to have to sand it and do it again. I want this to be the last coat, so I'm trying to make sure that that does not happen. So I had uh, like a hole spacing that was 3 inches, which is pretty common. So at that point, if I don't like the hardware, I'm just going to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and go pick up some. I like the, I think it's like the Mandera pools. I think it's the name of the company. It's either sold at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I really like that brand, that line. They work really good for me. I'm pretty sure that's what these are, and they're kind of like a brass or champagne finish. And I just installed them, and then I took some pictures and got it up on Facebook, and yeah, I sold it the next day. Sold it really quickly, so I was really happy with that. But yeah, please subscribe if you like this kind of content and want to see more furniture flipping and painting. And hopefully we'll be doing some more restoration soon too. I do have some plans to do some of that on the channel. So thank you, and have a good rest of your day.